1 candidates, we would like to hear your answer to a question on education. With so many students graduating high school with below par levels, some not even being literate, what do you think is a plausible solution to ensure competitive levels of education are being met? And we would like to start with you, Mr. Brandt, if you'd be so kind.
Okay, thank you very much. This particular question is near and dear to me. As a businessman, I face this issue all the time. What I do is software consulting with most clients right here in the district. And I'm having a tough time hiring people that can read and write. And you can imagine how important it is when you do a proposal to a client. If you use poor grammar, you can end up paying the price after the fact. And I've had a very difficult time doing this, so I feel it personally. As far as the higher education goes, in order to get people ready for that, I tie that into my energy plan. I believe that energy is the most important thing facing us right now. I think it affects national security, and if we don't become fossil fuel independent by 2020, we're going to have a big problem. Now, how that ties into education is with all the engineers and the scientists that we've been working with, education is the #1 challenge. We need the talent. We need the brain power to solve these big problems. We had it when we, in the Apollo project, when we started the internet, all of these things, we had that power, but we don't have it now. And what I propose is that we get some federal leadership and the federal government takes a bold step and acts just like the NBA or the NFL. And we pick students that are highly skilled in math and science and engineering and physics, the people that we're going to need to solve these problems, and we sponsor them from the time they're in junior high on. And we put them through college on the federal government dime, and we put them into high-paying jobs as they come out, and we develop the people that we need to solve these problems. That's what we're faced against. Now, right now, China produced over 600,000 engineers. We graduated 71,000 last year. We're not going to make it with that. When I went to college, California school system was the envy of the rest of the world. I remember going to a summer session at UCLA in 1969, and it was $118 for the whole quarter, and that included health care and parking. You know, and we had the best education. The scores were up. And so we need to do, like I said, to have federal programs that encourage people, add prestige to science and math. And the second thing we need to do is get rid of No Child Left Behind. I don't know about you, but I had 2 teachers that I can think back on that changed my life. I had a 7th grade English teacher and my junior year in high school history teacher that changed everything for me, and I used what they taught me to this day. I can still remember it. Well, do you know they couldn't teach that way today? Because they would be teaching for standardized tests, and they would have to teach to make sure that the students get a certain score on a multiple choice test, or they'll lose their funding. I don't know what sense that makes. The schools that need the most funding get the least. But I can tell you this, that as a businessman that works internationally, we don't need people that can answer multiple choice tests. We need people, those jobs get outsourced. What we need is people that know how things fit together. That's what I have troubles finding. When you go to a client and you can figure out what his cash flow problem is and how that fits together, or you have software developers or accountants, whatever the field is, we need to get back to the essay exams. We need to get teachers that teach. And we've got to pay them what they have to be paid. That's what I think.
The same question to you.
Well, thank you very much. Let me note I voted against the No Child Left Behind Act. That was totally consistent with the philosophy that I've had since the day I was elected to Congress, and that is that education is a local issue, and that we should make sure that the decisions that are made for a child's education are primarily those of the parent and the teachers, and certainly not some federal bureaucrat. And we see it. That is, however, we know, contrary to the people who've been stressing, we want to get more federal money, more federal money, more federal money, as if the federal government creates money. I mean, the bottom line is all the money for education that is spent at the local level comes out of the taxpayers' pockets in the first place. And I don't see any reason why we should take it out of the taxpayers' pockets locally and then make them jump through hoops to get it back. It would be better just to leave the money in their pockets in the first place, leave it at the local level. That's why I voted against No Child Left Behind. How do we improve education? And it is in a downward spiral. And you're going to hear this because this issue does permeate other issues. We have a very limited amount of money that is available for the education of our children. We have to make sure that that money is used for our children. It should not be used for the education of people who've come here illegally. It should be used for the benefit of our children. In terms of making sure that people are trained for these science and engineering jobs that our country depends upon, I think it's really important for us to understand we have a need there, and we differentiate between those who are teaching other courses and teachers who are teaching math, science, and engineering, who should receive a better pay level because we need these students. Number two, we need to make sure that students know when they graduate with degrees, they're going to have a higher paying job. And what we've got to do is end this thing where we're bringing in, for example, Filipino nurses all over the place. The bottom line is we need to pay nurses more money so more kids will get involved in nursing, just like the nursing program that I've been very supportive of right here on this campus. Also, and that goes for H-1B visas in terms of engineers and the rest too. We should not be bringing in hundreds of thousands of people, which will let it depress the wages. And no wonder why kids don't want to go into engineering. No wonder there's only 71,000 of them, because lawyers make more money. No, let's make sure the engineers and the science kids start making more money by quit flooding the market by bringing people in from the outside. A couple of other things in terms of what we can do. I believe that, for example, we can have public-private partnerships, like I have stressed, for the one on this campus, where we have the nursing program that is partnered with the outside hospitals and caregivers. This can be promoted. It will be very cost-effective. I've already been involved in that. In terms of making sure our young students who go into engineering and science and mathematics, that they can afford to do so. I have worked in the Science Committee, and NASA currently has a program, and I've tried to put this all the way through to other science-related programs in the budget, is that we can provide scholarships for young people in those areas, pay all of their expenses in school, all the way through graduate school, but what they have to do is work for 2 years for that institution, for NASA, or National Science Foundation, etc., for every year that they get their education paid for. Work, by the way, at a salary, at a regular salary. I think that helps us, helps our government, helps those kids, and I've already been very active in that. But again, I think education primarily, we have to make sure that we don't take the responsibility away from local parents and local teachers and give it to the bureaucracy. That's the most important item.
Thank you, Jim. Now I'd like to have a rebuttal from each of the candidates.
Okay, well, I certainly agree that we need to control the schools locally. That's why I said I was against the No Child Left Behind. But where I disagree is I think that the federal government needs to get involved in a big way to make this happen for us to turn around the education system. The American taxpayer is the greatest venture capitalist that ever existed. And if we're going to do something big, like become fossil fuel independent, then we're going to have to hit this thing hard. And it's not just going to be a scholarship like described. I'm talking about a super effort, like I was saying, just like the NBA or the NFL. And you give people and you add prestige to the position, and it's an investment from the federal government that will get way back. Because let me tell you this, if China or India solves this problem before we do, then how expensive is it going to be? So that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
We are spending enormous amounts of money educating Chinese graduate students in our schools in science and mathematics. We've got to as I say, provide the scholarships for our own students and make sure that the only students that we're training in the schools do not come from communist China, which is a potential enemy. Let me just say, when we say that the federal government has got to get to be involved in a big way, that is exactly the opposite direction we should be going. We've got to get the federal government out of the decision-making process. And all the resources come from the local area anyway. This is, you know, when by the way, I meet almost every student that comes to Washington, and I talk to them for a while. I always ask the same question: have you seen the federal money pits of the trees, where all the money comes from? And finally, they do realize all that money comes from us locally. So if we tax it away and then give the power to the federal government in a real big way to make the decisions, we've given up our ability to make those decisions. That's the opposite of what we should be trying to do.